All right, we're live. At least that's what it says. So, all right. If you guys happen to notice someone joining the Hangout and I have not added them to the broadcast, please let me know. Because
what's our safe word?
That guy is making.
Stinky kitties.
Peanuts, peanuts, peanuts.
Oh, okay. Here we go. So Rob's asking. I forgot to see. I always know that I'm going to forget somebody. There's the list that I send out is growing, and I always forget somebody.
Where's Alex?
I don't know. He'll be along in shortly, I'm assuming.
I think he said he might be late.
Yeah, maybe.
What was that last time?
Well, last time he was detained beforehand, so maybe this is the case this time as well. I don't know.
Detained? What did he do? Break the law?
He's a joker for sure.
Has it been 30 seconds? Because I've been talking the whole time.
What do you guys want to talk about this week? Last week we talked about Composer GUI, and we talked about the publisher models, and we talked about Kickstarter campaigns, and it was a very active conversation.
Rob's here.
Yep, got him.
Okay, your picture's frozen on my.
You didn't say peanuts and/or stinky.
No, peanuts is the safe word. That's the one we pull out, if you know what I'm saying.
Oh, okay.
Sounds like something else.
Abort. What's that?
That's not a very good safe word.
No.
I know, but it's very distinctive.
Safe word being Virginia.
Well, originally it was abort, but that was too obvious, so I thought I would go with peanuts.
Right.
It sounds like saying Virginia or Volvo.
Negative Ghost Rider, the pattern is full. See, that's too long now.
Pattern is full is good.
Pattern is full.
Knock, knock. I don't know, safe words. Anyway. You know what?
The whole show is going to be about safe words.
It's going to be safe words and passwords.
Makes you wonder about us.
It's already all over.
Yeah. It's after dark. So one thing that I think is interesting is, I guess, New Corona, the guys in the IRC are talking about, like right now going on in IRC, I think Allstain is trying to do a build for Mac.
Uh-huh.
And Sean from Corona, who does like the, what do you call it, the server stuff, he keeps our server going.
Yeah.
And Michael is another guy from Corona. They're in the IRC right now. And they're helping them walk them through it. I thought it was pretty interesting. I haven't gotten the latest Corona build, but apparently it's real easy to build for Windows and OS X.
Well, Windows I can attest to. It's just point and click.
Really?
Oh,
yeah. Here, I'll put the blog post in the chat. But yeah, it's out there. It's open beta now.
Literally, if you're on OS X, it's file build OS X, and boom, out you get an executable in a matter of seconds. I mean,
that's amazing.
Fast.
I mean, it sort of sounds like if you've got a project that runs great in the simulator, like you don't need to build for device to test anything. You're pretty much able to build it for desktop.
Yeah,
Wow.
I mean, the things that don't work are the things that you would expect wouldn't work, like maps. Well, Windows doesn't have a Maps API to link to.
Sure.
And I'm not even sure on OS X. I mean, I know there is a Maps application, but I don't know if there's a framework sitting out there that
I don't think I've ever seen it embedded in any other app. I'm not sure
so it's those types of things that people will go, well, why can't I use Facebook or why can't I use Flurry? Well, you go to their website, they have an iOS and an Android SDK. OS X and Windows is not iOS or Android.
Yeah.
So,
you're never going to be able to make them all happy, man.
You're not going to get Game Network or Google Gameplay running on Windows. It's just not going to happen. So
I think they should be happy that's not running, because it's one less complicated, difficult thing they got to do.
Yeah.
Make the game, for goodness sake.
I mean, at some point, we'd like to have, I'd like for you to play my game and see your high scores across all other things. But that's when you go ahead and implement mod parse or use Chromium IO.
Uh-oh. You have to write that down. See, I've already got a high score thing for Chromium. I could just give that away for a few dollars to people.
Or make a plug-in out of it,
$dollars.
I can do that.
apps do you think we sell? Are you going to take money from us? But anyway, I mean, one thing that I think is kind of neat is, Laura, this is really good for game jams.
Oh yeah, that's true.
You know what I mean?
Opens the door.
Yeah, it really does.
I mean, it's really cool. And plus, the market that it opens up is really interesting. I mean,
So oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I could see like your game that you were working on, the Alaskan. What is it called? The Alaskan Trail? No.
Northwest Passage Adventure.
Northwest Passage.
Arctic Adventure.
That's right. That's right. That's awesome. I mean, that thing is like perfect for PC or Mac.
Yeah, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, can we can we submit to Steam now?
Apparently, you can just build an EXE or a OSX or DMG build. I'm not really.
Well, Steam is Windows based, so it would be the Windows 32.exe file. But Steam's got some setup fees. I think it's $100 to get set up with them. And they don't accept just any old app. They're going to have some type of approval process to decide what actually gets on the channel.
No,
So
but I'm assuming you can convince them that it's worth their time. I think the EXE that it's kicking out should work.
There's no technical reason why a Corona build would not run there. They do have their own store API or something like that, and I've heard some chatter about that going on, but I don't have any details on it.
Sure. One thing to understand about Steam is really it is really hard. You have to build up a huge campaign to get voted in.
This the green light?
Yeah, it's the green light thing. A lot of the people on there are not very friendly to mobile.
Yeah.
I have a friend from the Tress Brothers. The Tress Brothers are really cool. It's like two brothers, and they made a killing on their games, and they have a huge following. But it's a huge mobile following, and they have a bunch of RPGs out that are in the top of the Android charts. It's pay to play, so you pay in the game, and they went on to Steam, and they kind of got a shellacking, because you got to think that a lot of things on Steam are done by like these big AAA companies.
Right. Yeah.
So your audience might not be there. I just put into the what do you call it, the little chat thing. I think it's itch.io. I hope it is, or I'll be very embarrassed. But I think this is a good one. There's other options besides Steam. Is it itch?
And you could also, you can also release it from your own website, right?
Yeah,
you could do some.
Yeah. No, releasing from your website, you have to pay for the bandwidth. But like something like itch.io, I don't know if you've gone to it, is really good for indies.
Oh,
Anyway,
cool.
pop that up on the screen.
Yeah, I'll check that out.
I don't know if you can do that, McKeever.
Yeah, I got it right here. Oh, can I? Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, can you show everyone what it looks like?
I will.
Because a lot of indies release games through here, and you can do the self-promotion. It's not as large as Steam, but it's also not as brutal. And if you just want to make something and get it out there and have availability.
There you
Oh
go.
my God! What's
see that?
professional apps?
And that seems like a good target location for a lot of stuff that you would make
Totally.
PC or OS X.
Yeah, it seems like more more mobile kind of games.
Yeah, it's more indie friendly too. And there's a lot of experimental games on it.
Mhm. Awesome. Yeah, I'll check that out. That looks a lot cooler. I've
Now-
seen some of the Steam reviews they do get.
Yeah, Steam can get very harsh.
Yes.
And once you get sunk under Steam, and there's also since it does set up a forum and bulletin boards and all that stuff, people get very vocal,
Oh gosh.
and a lot of them are, it's kind of rough. But itch.io,
Admit unless you're willing to cry a little bit.
yeah, itch.io is really indie friendly. I don't think there's ever been there you go, there it is. I see it on the screen now. Check that out.
Very cool. Yeah, it just looks like a great resource.
Princess Nom Nom.
Where was it? Over here, Princess. No.
Yeah, they have some really cute stuff there. And then you can take your marketing elsewhere and use them as the hub.
Oh, that's a good idea.
you know, instead of using Steam as the hub, where a lot of people, especially if it's like a children's title, a lot of people might not even have Steam all loaded up, you know, because Steam's kind of like for, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's more for like adult games.
Yeah, yeah. So I think it's kind of cool.
Yeah, it's a cool platform. Oh my
It's just
god.
nom nom.
Professional Cats looks awesome. Do you see Professional Cats?
I saw Professional Cats. I'm gonna download this.
This nom nom thing looks weird. Looks like, come here, children, let me eat you.
I think it is.
There's a game called Argo or Arlago or something like that, or I'm not really sure what it is. That I saw it last night. It is like one of the biggest things I've ever seen, and I want to talk to the Coronium guy about it. Basically, it creates a room, and you're like a sphere, and you got to go collect other spheres, and there's other spheres that will grab those spheres and get bigger, and it's only like a room of like 10.
Did you guys ever see the llama game? It's a mobile app.
I've seen some of his llama games.
Where the llama eats a llama and it turns into this weird sort of llama.
Yeah, are you talking about Llamasoft, the actual guy who's like way into the...
I guess. It's hilarious, though.
Yeah, there's this guy named who does this thing, Llamasoft. He's had this like llama gig for a long time.
Yeah.
Hey guys, I'm still in a noisy room, but I've switched to like wired headphones. Is this sounding any better? Am I ruining the audio?
You sound good. I think I'd say to just you know, maybe mute yourself until you want to jump in. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, no. I might move to a different room. I am on a laptop. I'm just sitting under an air vent here.
Every once in a while, one of us is bleeding back through, but
yeah. Well, that's Hangout. Yeah.
Hey, I was waiting semi-patiently. Now, I know that our community knows about the desktop builds for OS X and Windows, but are we, as participants here, you know, top users, however you want to think of us, and the Corona staff, doing anything to evangelize this elsewhere, to hopefully draw in some users who were previously put off by the fact that it was just mobile? You know?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't think there's been any push to, you know, yet. It just came out, but yeah, I think it would be great.
Yeah, it's still in beta, but I mean,
well, it's an open
really
beta.
Better, I think, for us. You know, I'm talking to the folks here and other people who might be listening later, to evangelize and tell people about it and try to get them interested in using this. Because the more users we have, the better it is for the community. Oh, and Alex is here.
There he is. Speaking of better for the community, here's Alex.
What up, fools?
What up, it's gonna be that night. What up,
What's happening?
I think Eric's suggestion of doing game jam thing would be a good.
Yeah, that is a good idea.
Mm-hmm.
Game jams always draw attention. So,
right.
Because people just see game jam and they're like, okay, what's the tool? What do I have to use? And
right.
Are we losing attention? Are we not getting enough attention?
No, you missed the intro to that. We were talking about OS X and Windows desktop builds, and we'd been talking about itch.io, which is a good platform, a good possibility as a platform to put your games out, versus Steam, which is a lot more rough and tumble, and for other reasons too. I guess you're gonna have to go back and watch that bit. But what I wanted to ask in there was, are we as a community, individuals, and the staff, just everybody, are we doing what we can to evangelize? Because I've been waiting for a while to see the OS X and Windows desktop build, and I think that some people may have been put off in the past saying, oh, it's just mobile. Well, Unity does everything. Yeah, okay, great, but you know, we do 2D very well, and now we're almost ready to go to desktop. So you should consider us again if you not to previously.
I mean, I don't know. As far as evangelizing, I don't know. I've never really been good with that, just because.
Says
I
the
feel
guy
like
who writes the article weekly.
I like to. That's like internal. Nobody outside, you know, cares about that very much.
It's a form of evangelizing, though. So.
I agree. It definitely is. But I mean, nobody
Not
outside.
hustling. And it's not hooking.
I gotta hustle. It's true. It's not late enough to curse yet. I gotta get in.
Laura missed that discussion previously, but in a previous show, I'm cutting Alex off here. He called me in one show a hustler, a hooker, and somebody else called me a cockroach.
Is it true?
That I'm a cockroach?
He's not a cockroach.
And a hustler?
That wasn't me.
You don't even have a costume.
Let's see.
Well,
Ed, I'm the Confederate to Ed's hustler. Ed's hustling like crazy. He's a crazy hustler. He's hustling.
Yeah,
He's working
good,
hard.
right?
It's a good thing.
It's a good thing.
Exactly. That's a
I'm gonna
compliment.
take it as a good thing.
All right, last time I do this, am I ruining the audio now, or is it good?
This is gonna be the highlight.
You're
of the
good.
show.
All right.
You need
Are
to
you
cut
in the-
together a
Are you in
real
the supply
face-
closet now?
I'm at the office tonight, so I just went to a quieter part of the floor.
No, really, do it one more time, Jason, because I want to see the reel where it's just you coming in. He's like, now I'm in a different place.
He's
I
in the
want to see him in
bathroom.
your car next, all right?
Anybody remember Wayne's World? Now I'm in Delaware.
Delaware.
Sorry.
Tax-free shopping. So, Ed, tell me about how you think what we should do to evangelize. I think it's a great idea. I'm into it for sure. But like every time I try to talk to somebody about, it seems so niche that every time I try to talk to somebody about it, they're like, I use Game Salad or I use PhoneGap or I use. You know what? You know who I was talking to recently? Does anybody remember Karem? K-San? Yeah. I saw him lurking on the forums a little while ago. He was this dude. I did. I saw him. He was this dude, awesome guy. He actually created a widget town.
He was in Detroit, right?
I think so. I forget. Widget town, whatever. Anyway, it's he was super into creating widgets and different accessibility features for Corona. And I was talking to him, he was like, he fell out of love with it just because of the lack of identical native elements, and so he just moved on to something else and using something else. So he was already on board, and then he fell out of love. So I never thought that not having those native elements was a deterrent. I guess we got de facto company spokesperson Rob on the line. What's the best way to combat that sentiment, do you guys think? Thanks.
Well,
Thanks, Charles.
before Rob goes, I just wanted to say that I really don't think the conversation should be about interface elements. To me, it's about, can you make a game? We had this discussion earlier. We were talking, and Rob said something about people complaining about how I can't use Google's achievements, or one of the plugin libraries that they're used to using for mobile. And my thought is why are these people complaining when they should be working on the core, which is their game? And then, yes, I understand that they want to have these other features that surround it.
Yeah.
But really, if they're getting stuck on the bits and they don't have their game done, they've got their focus upside down.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Yeah, it's one of the challenges just in the forums is a lot of people, the first thing they try to do is how to get AdMob working. Well, how about build the game first? But what, Laura?
I still haven't figured that out. I will.
Yeah, I mean, it blows my mind at how people want to attack the advanced things first. How do I get in-app purchases working? Well, how about, have you thought out your economy for your game yet? You can't build the in-app purchases till you know what you're going to sell. And a lot of people struggle with that. And I think having these desktop apps not be able to support that sort of stuff yet might get people back to thinking about the game first and, the auxiliary stuff second. But, I mean, you're right. Karim, if we weren't delivering widget fixes every couple of days to him, he became an unhappy person.
You heard it. That's right. You heard it right in that forum.
You're right. He was a squeaky wheel trying to get the grease for sure. But I will say, in contrast to some people on the forums, I don't know. Sometimes he would get a little frustrated, but I don't think he ever crossed a line. I think he was always respectful and helpful in his own way towards it. I mean, like I said, he was a squeaky wheel.
Yeah, and and we didn't have a problem with that. I mean, people are going to be that way. I mean, there are a lot of people that are the squeaky wheels, but at the end of the day, we have our priorities that we have to work on. With a small team of engineers,
But yeah, but he never had a. Okay, I told myself I wasn't going to mention this. He didn't. I don't think he ever posted in all caps. Hey, Rob, miracle! A forum post like the one that appeared in the forums today.
I didn't see that one. Who posted that?
You should go look it up. I'm not gonna. I don't want to get into that, but it was a shouty, very direct.
People calling your name out, Rob. People calling your name out their mouth. It's crazy. Don't they know who you are?
Well, in fairness, this is a guy is really new to programming. And I am struggling to get him to do the basics of copy and paste the error out of the console log so I can see what his problem is.
Oh, man.
I asked him to do a screenshot to show me what his app's doing. He took a photo of his screen with his phone to post the photo. So not everybody got the expertise to be able to do this in the manner that we would expect him to. So it takes patience.
I love it.
I think that's the new standard.
When they do that.
That's the new standard right there. I think we should take screenshots with our phones from now on. That's it. Don't even post your code. Don't post your code. Just screenshot it. Just like get your iPhone, take a picture, upload
it. But that's it. And I mean to reframe it, because I don't want to slander this for a kid. I assume he's a young person. I don't really know. But you know, listen, he's got an idea. He's trying to build it. He's doing what he can. But it's I'm
actually being serious. I think it's a great idea.
Well, and looking at the artwork in the screenshots, I mean, he looks like he's got a fairly decent-looking game to build. And we just have to help him get there. And like I said, it requires some patience, and we'll get him there one way or the other.
Yeah. From what I was reading on his post, it sounds like you had previously advised him to reorganize his code, and maybe he had some issues with forward declaration, missing forward declaration, or something like that, where he was trying to use a function before he had...
It definitely sounded like there were scope problems.
Yeah, he's got some scope problems.
Yeah.
But until I can see the error message to say, hey, line 56, you're getting a nil trying to do this, it's going to be hard to direct him any further.
Yeah.
That's why we spend time writing things like the debugging guide to help people solve those types of issues and point them to the help that they need to get them to where, as a community, we can help them. It's just some people take a little bit of extra work to get to that point.
Well, that's a good, this brings it back to the evangelizing point. I mean, you've got people that are used to Construct 2, they're used to Game Salad, they're used to, not Unity. They're used to simple, drag, drop, point, click, done kinds of situations. And now you've got Corona, which is useful, absolutely. And Eric is on board, and of course, everybody's excited about the possibilities of Composer GUI. But as far as getting folks to use Corona to build what they want to build, of course, we definitely want people like Brandon, or whatever his name is, to use Corona. It's good. No matter how you start out, you start out knowing nothing. I mean, I started out, I was doing like simple, HTML crap, and then I came into this and was like, hey, how do you make a dungeon? Like with a ridiculous question like that. So everybody starts small. It's all real good. I mean, is it just, Ed, would you agree that just patience when you're prophesizing is the best way to move forward, or is there a party line that we should adhere to?
Well, Rob mentioned it. It's I see the same thing, which is people jump into the deep end too early.
Oh my goodness! Ed, did you see that thread? Did you see that thread that me and Rob were on about the dude who was trying to figure out how to what was it? He was trying to figure out how to start a timer and keep score.
Mm-hmm.
Use the exact same verbiage you did. Didn't mean to interrupt. Go ahead.
Well, that's okay. I was just saying, it's difficult. It's a difficult question to answer because some people in the forums, it's very hard to identify people in the forums by their skill level. One, we have foreign speakers, and so sometimes I see a question that doesn't look like they're very knowledgeable, but it's because they put it through a translator, so it's kind of like dumbing down, so it sounds more like they're a new programmer or they're having trouble that's not related to which is related to their experience, when in fact they're just having trouble stating their question. But what I wanted to say is I think that a lot of times for many of the people that we've been seeing in the forums asking questions lately, the primary problem is the deep end first. They're all jumping into the deep end. They didn't try to make something simple like tic-tac-toe or whack-a-mole or something like that. They said, okay, how can I make I don't know. I can't even think of a good example, but like some current game that I enjoy playing. This is what people do all the time. I like this game. I'm going to make a copy of it.
It's difficult also because that's why people get into these games. Is I want to make a Skyrim or I want to make.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I understand that.
You know, I don't want to make tic-tac-toe. I don't want to do an asteroid. So,
I know.
You know,
I don't want to learn Lua.
Like I understand what you guys are talking about, but then also, you know, I've also been on that other side where it's like, I don't really want to learn the boring stuff. And you have to anyway. But.
Do you think?
Go ahead.
Do you think any of it has to do with trying to expose obstacles right up front? You know, because I know that when I evaluate, you know, anything, I'm looking for the things that I don't know are gonna bite me.
I think, I mean, my whole feeling on it is this: every single problem, you know, whether it's making dinner or it's building Skyrim, it's composed of multiple, you know, different solutions. You know, when, you know, in the thread that I'm talking about that Rob jumped in on, but I was, you know, trying to help the guy out on, I was watching it from afar. You know, I was viewing it from a distance, as I am wont to do, and the guy was like, hey, I don't know how to do this. Don't give me any links. I need somebody to type out exactly how I would achieve, 1, obtaining a score, 2, showing that score on the screen, 3, saving that score, 4, showing a high score after all the save scores that I had were, you know, conglomerated into whatever, a text file, whatever.
What's the pay for this job?
Exactly. And I was like, you know, I want to see, like, I'm just, you know, as like I said, I'm wont to do. I was kind of curious as to who would respond to that kind of a question. A bunch of people came in. One guy was, you know, actually, you know, after going back and forth with the OP, he finally, you know, kind of typed out some useful code that may or may not prove, you know, useful in the future for what they wanted. But I was like, hey guys, I don't mean to derail this, but there's a tutorial on this exact thing that Rob created like a year and a half ago, and it's still fresh. It still works fine. I realize you don't want links, but this is everything you want right here. This is everything you could ever want on it. The answer was like, nope, I just need to know how it works right now. Maybe later on I'll figure out. Basically, I'm paraphrasing, of course. This isn't exactly what they said. Like, maybe later I can figure out the ins and outs. Right now, I just need it to work.
But it's so funny. It like points to a fundamental misunderstanding of the way a forum works. It's like no,
Right.
a good link is a forum working exactly as it should. I mean,
Right.
it's
I agree.
you have a question. Here's how you can do it. And I think at some point it points to somebody. I go, do you want to be a game designer or maybe a game publisher? But if if it doesn't rev you up digging into this stuff, you don't want to be a game developer.
Right.
So
You know what I mean?
so how do you handle those types of participants?
I don't say
without
what I
any
just
channels.
said on a live broadcast.
But Charles, what I just did, I just put my hands up and I was like, hey, okay, cool. Just didn't mean any offense. Just trying to help out. You know, I was just pointing out that what this guy typed out is basically exactly what Rob, you know, posted a year and a half ago. But hey, you don't want it, you don't want it. That's cool. Do your thing. But that's basically when Rob jumped in. Looks like Rob's got something to say.
And it's part of, you know, my overall struggles with the forums is at what point have I answered the same question so many times that I need just to write it down once. I mean, like in this guy's case, I probably could have gone to that forum post, copied all the text out of it, dropped it out to the blog post tutorial, copied all that, dropped it in the forum post, and satisfied him. We gave him everything he needed to know. He just didn't want to click on the link. You know, there's only so many ways that you can tell somebody how to set up one of these score files. And it's, you know, not to give away one of my secrets, but a lot of the tutorials originate from things that I've answered multiple times in the forums. And the question keeps coming up, how do I do this? Well, time for a tutorial on it.
Ed, do you still do your posts when you see questions in the forum that you want to elucidate on your blog? Do you still have that? I haven't seen your links lately, so maybe.
Oh no, I'm way behind on.
Yeah.
Just this last couple weeks, I've been sort of absent.
Yeah. So no, I only asked this because I mean, Rob, I think that's how everybody feels. Like I created, I had a bunch of stuff on my website just pointing out, some interesting links that I wanted to highlight and some mentions thereof. Am I echoing for you guys?
A little bit. Probably one of us is probably doing it. I wanted to say the reason I've been absent answering questions is because I've been collecting all of my answers and everything I've written and everything I've worked on in Corona for the past however many years, since 2012, in order to find a way to distribute it.
Well, Ed, I mean, I think now could not be speaking about your I think the support idea, the Patreon that you had those many weeks ago. I think now is the time to do that. I mean, you have people like the guy we're describing now. We've got Brandon. You're only going to see more folks coming out of. This is crazy. I don't know what's going on with my mic. You're only going to see more people.
It's not you, it's us.
All right. You're only going to see more people coming out of the woodwork, talking, looking for additional assistance. Do you know what I mean? Like, now, will they be willing to pay a premium? Doubtful. But some people will definitely be interested in getting some actual support from actual experts. When, Rob, it's not technically Rob's job to provide one-on-one support for folks. If you see something in the forum, just like Jason said, the way a forum operates is somebody asks a question, say, hey, I know the answer to that, and it was answered a year and a half ago. Here is the link to that answer. That's a working forum. What this guy wants is one-on-one support or one-on-one, tutorial assistance. And so that's when you would be like, hey, jump into the Patreon, $5 a month, you can get all the support you want, or whatever your tiers are, whatever. I mean, I think now is the time to start that.
I'm doing my darndest to avoid swearing to finish my Patreon. I have a unpublished Patreon page that I am just trying to finish.
So here's where I'm going to go. I'm going to set up a Patreon page.
Uh-oh.
That's going to go ahead and just rent Ed out, and then I will take a cut, and then convince Ed to do the work, and we'll all be happy.
Well, what about my top layer Patreon page for both of you?
Oh.
I don't know if you guys know, but
that's even better.
As the grand matriarch of the Patreon, I actually get a cut of that too. So you got to slice off 25%.
It's one of them pyramid schemes.
Network marketing. That's what it's called. That's the
Patreon brought to you by Amway.
Oh my God! Don't say Amway. I suffered through that as a child.
Isn't that Nutrilife now? Don't they do Nutrilife?
That's still Amway.
Yeah, exactly. They rebrand though. That's a smart thing. So it's not going to be Ed. It's going to be Charles, and it's going to be Alex, and then it's going to be Eric.
That's right. That's right. You just get 3 people, and they'll get 3 people.
Long story short, something's coming. Yes, you're right. Charles suggested that 2 weeks ago, I believe it was, and I was poo-pooing the idea then and realized that he was actually right after the show.
There you go.
I'm doing my darndest to make that happen before the end of this month, which means I've got like 2 days left.
I think you're not planning on Patreon pledges from broke developers.
From whom? What?
I hope you're not hoping on getting Patreon pledges from broke developers.
Nobody's truly broke. They just pay for the things they want to pay for.
Yeah. I'm going to start it off as a very simple experiment, and then just move forward from there. And if it doesn't pan out, it doesn't pan out. But Charles said something that was didn't strike me until later, 2 weeks ago, and he said, and not in reference to this at all, but he said 100% of 0 is still 0, which struck me later because if you don't try, you can't know. So I'll try. Patreon, filling out and creating a Patreon account is not that hard. The difficult part for me is actually putting out my best foot first with a few items that would encourage people to want to support me on a Patreon. And if that doesn't work, it doesn't work.
I mean,
I'm trying
I
to
think
do these things in line. Sorry, I'm trying to do these things all in line so that I'm achieving something regardless of the effort.
Well, that's one thing that actually turns me off to is development help, is if I got to pay for it. And you know, that's one thing I loved about Corona, is that I paid for my Corona entry for like 3 years, like a lot of us did, and the support was like community. It was support within a community. You know, a lot of us became friends and got to know each other by helping each other, not by expecting each other to contribute to a page to get information.
I'm not going to be doing that. Just to be clear, when I start this Patreon, it's not going to. It doesn't mean if you want help, you got to go give me money on the Patreon. The point of the Patreon is to say I'm going to keep trying to help people as much as I can, but one, if you like that, then and you can afford it, give me a few bucks on the Patreon. And if you're interested in some of the things that I'm working on, and these are the things that I'm working on, which I can't really show right now, but I got a whole bunch of stuff just sitting around doing nothing that people might find useful, then the upper tier Patreon contributors will get access to that stuff.
Yeah, I know Ed's published his stuff in the past through Gumroad, and you know, with the option to be able to put in 0 as the dollar figure. So it's all about. I feel like it's all about just saying, hey, I value your help, and I'm willing to support you. I mean, that's kind of the whole Patreon thing is to begin with. You're a patron. You're a supporter of the arts. You feel like you benefit in some way. It's almost the same thing of like, I mean, I hate to use the PBS model, but if you feel like, you know, if you've ever donated to PBS, you get it for free. But you know, there maybe come that time where you're like, you know what, I listen to this all the time. Sure, I'll give you $20. So that's the way I see it.
To evangelize and grow our community, because the more people we have, the more chances my Patreon has.
Look, I think the idea has legs for sure. Now that nobody's paying for support, nobody's paying for the product, you know, the possibility, the ability to actually get, you know, quality support is definitely there. Are people going to latch onto it now that they're getting something for nothing? Who knows? I mean, that I think obviously is the worry. But I don't think you're really losing anything by venturing, in my opinion.
I'm just going to venture with low effort. Like I said, the effort that I'm putting in aligns with other things I'm doing, so it's not lost effort.
I had somebody ask me a long time ago. They said they went to my website and they said, "How can I give you money?" And I was like, "What?" And they said, "There's nothing on your website for me to give you money." And I was like, "You're absolutely right." I mean, you know what I mean? Like, not that
I totally understand that.
Yeah, I mean, just for the person who just says, you know what, I appreciate what you do, and I want to give you, here's $1. You know.
I'll put it to you guys like this, and I think that, again, you know, having this app ring, you know, this this support commune, you know, Ed and whoever else he wants to, you know, bring into the fold. Exactly, as I'm trying to share. I see that scowl.
I love that you called it a ring. Remember web rings?
I like they call it a commune.
I think that's what Ed called
Web rings again?
Remember?
That's come up. Oh, you guys have got to stop with the web rings thing.
Did somebody else bring that up? Did I miss that?
No, yeah, we've had that discussion in previous shows. I'm leaving.
No, it just
It's gone.
It takes me back. Remember? The internet.
I got a couple interesting things that just kind of cropped up on the IRC chat forum. You know the IRC chat thing?
Yeah.
It's really cool.
You mean that thing you're always trying to get us involved on? I'm always saying no. I'm kidding.
Well, right now there's a really cool issue. There's a really cool issue with building.
Mhm.
It's probably going to be fixed, but it's with building for OSX apps. Apparently, right now there's a small bug. You cannot overwrite your iOS app. It doesn't want to do that. It doesn't want to overwrite the iOS app. So you have to either change the name or delete it if you built it as an iOS app and are trying to build an OS X app on top of it.
The code signing gets screwed up when that happens.
Yeah, I just figured I'd tell everyone that.
Yeah.
That is good to know, Eric.
It just came up in the IRC. IRC's cool.
Hey, if you go to coronalabs.com/IRC, it'll take you directly to a page that's got everything you need to know there.
Oh, that's an interesting question because I haven't built for OS 10 yet. How does provisioning work? Do you need to create do you need to go to the provisioning portal, create an OS 10 app ID, make a provisioning profile for it?
Well, first, the good news, Apple decided to merge all the developer accounts into one account.
Yep.
So you don't have to have a separate OS X developer account paying out an extra $99 a year like you used to. I don't know that I have the answer on how you do that yet. I'm still kind of in that learning process. But I think it's just a matter of going and getting a provisioning profile. You probably have to create a new certificate for OS X and follow through that process because I don't think you can use your iOS ones.
I would imagine not, but I haven't tried to build yet.
Yeah, but you can build. I mean, I think I went into Xcode and generated something there, and I've just been using that as my sort of thing, let Xcode do all the work for me, but I'm not at a point I could even begin to try to tell you the steps involved. I kind of lucked onto whatever I did and haven't gone back to it, so.
So I'm gonna. Oh, sorry.
That's okay. I just want to see. I feel kind of stupid now. Am I like the only person on the Hangout who's not in the IRC right now?
You're missing out.
I'm not on
I
our.
laughed for so long at the IRC.
Eric's the crown prince of the IRC, so watch out. Do not get into his bad side.
I'm going to throw out a topic, and we can move to it or not. But given that it's been in the news a little bit this week, who on the panel has an Ouya, has considered developing for Ouya, and what's the news now that they've been? It's like, I don't know if you guys have seen. There's been some news stories. So I mean, it's been simmering for a little while. They got bought, and the company that bought them is pretty much buying them. They're buying, it sounds like, patents and infrastructure. They wanted some employees. They wanted their app store. They're not interested in the hardware side of the business. So the hardware is pretty much going away. But for those of us who have them and have considered developing for them, I know I tinkered but never actually released anything. How do you feel about that?
I tinkered as well. I never really pushed anything cool to it, and then just got bogged down with 1,000 other things, obviously. But it's like the best idea ever. I always thought the console was like fantastic. It's just weird that it's like when you're running a restaurant and you're a cook, you you spend 10% of your time cooking and 90% of your time actually doing the administrative work of the cooking. So with the I mean, it was so cool. All they had to do was worry about the machine. But then they had those ridiculous campaigns. It just killed all momentum that it had. So it seemed like pointless to make anything for it.
Also, it made it impossible if you didn't want to be a free app.
I think they eased up on that in recent months.
I thought you had to pay.
They lost all their clients. I mean, I've got friends that made tiny towers. Those guys and stuff. I mean, I've had friends that were really killing it back then, and they ported their stuff over to OU, and I think they made like $2,000. It was just it was devastatingly low. A lot of people have just, once you put something on a platform and you make hardly anything, like I dropped Nook after I was struggling so hard with their Flash interface. It's terrible, and I think I made like $14. And then I realized I could probably maybe make, $100, $200 if I keep at it, but it was just so much work, and Amazon was doing way better, and Google and iOS were doing way better than Amazon. So I kind of just moved away from the Nook platform.
Yeah.
And I think that OU suffers, or whatever, suffers from that. I think it really suffers from it. There was I mean, everyone's already had the mass exodus.
I've seen people.
That's why I haven't developed at all on it. Like, I thought it was really cool, and I liked the little box, and I liked trying to figure out how it was pronounced. That was fun. But I settled on the Ouya. But yeah, the same thing. It was like, everybody's got an iPhone. Whoever doesn't have an iPhone has an Android. But I don't know that there's going to be enough of a base to make this worth all the time and development and testing, and et cetera, et cetera.
That's what I'm saying.
I'll be curious to see if it has an afterlife as like an indie sort of thing, because I think I feel the same way about it as I do about my PlayStation Vita, which I love, but I love it because now it's an indie dev platform essentially.
I mean, it would be awesome if the Oh Yeah did have a life afterwards. Like, do you see people developing for like the ZX Spectrum now? Like, exactly, they're taking it way back. So that'd be sweet if it was super retro, but I don't see it happening because it would be great. Every 3 weeks I see somebody like, oh, we're releasing this game on Oh Yeah, and you're like, oh, that's cute, and then you move on to the next tweet. Like, you're not even really, you don't even really think about it. Like, it's got no staying power. I wish it did do something cool, but it doesn't.
I'll tell you this right now. What is progressively much more interesting is what the Amazon is doing with their Amazon TV.
Mm.
I mean, Amazon,
the Fire TV is a way
Fire TV is pretty rad. It's way more rad. I mean, you get to plug it into your TV. It has a controller. Or you can use the remote if you want to be like, the worst possible developer. But the controller.
Can't wait for that supposed next version of the Apple TV. If they make a controller for that thing,
sure,
we can access that, and that could be exciting.
But the Apple TV, I mean, the Amazon Fire TV thing, that seems way more interesting. And I know a lot of people at Amazon, and Amazon just continues to throw money at their games division. Where it started with like a Kickstarter.
It was Kickstarter. I mean, that's the thing, they bungled everything.
Yeah.
Like, they really had a problem with because I think it was a business first and a console second. Do you know does that make any sense to anybody?
I think of as I think of like Open Faint. Remember Open Faint?
Mm-hmm.
That brings back see Ed shaking his head.
Yeah, I remember.
Open Faint was Game Center before Game Center.
That's right.
It was good, and then it went away. Well, I thought it was good. But
it tanked hard.
It was easy.
I like the icon. It made me feel comfortable. Lulled me into a sense of security.
I associate it with the first few games I really enjoyed on the iPhone, and now it's gone.
Yeah, it's long gone.
How many people use Game Center on here? Does everybody think
I do.
It has to be used?
Oh, if you want to get like tons of extra downloads, sure. Also another thing is if you want any chance of featuring, you got to have Game Center.
Yeah. Got to have Game Center.
You think that's true? You think that they won't feature you without Game Center?
I know for a fact that it's like a strike against you, a huge strike against you.
Yeah, I mean, if it's going to be a lift you up from obscurity type of thing, you probably really need to have it in there. I mean,
okay. So when we say Game Center, we're talking about two different things. We're talking about achievements, and what's the other side? I can't even remember. There's what?
Leaderboards, turn-based.
Leaderboards, that's right.
Leaderboards.
So when you guys say that, you mean you feel like for every app you've got to make 10 achievements because it's the minimum set and a leaderboard?
Yeah, it didn't take long at all. And I mean, with Quest Sword, I threw it in kind of like the last minute. And I am so glad that I threw it in at the last minute because I could tell that I was getting a lot of users from Game Center, and you can invite other. It almost like it helps promote it more.
So it's got a back end for invitations.
Sorry.
So we all try to talk. It's got a back end for invitations. It's got an invitation scheme.
Yeah, it's got an invitations thing that I haven't looked into, but that Apple itself does. It's like all my friends, it's like, they make like, Crossy Road and these featured apps and stuff, and we all get on there and we're testing each other's apps, and I'm like, oh, one of my friends has this app, and I can see his name on the app, and I know what apps he's playing and stuff. It's almost like it does like cross promotion just through mentioning and invites. And the invites you can set up, just straight through Game Center itself, and the Game Center, you don't have to even worry about that part. There is some strangeness though, because a lot of people will get your app, hack your app, so they can be the hot number on Game Center. Like a lot of Game Center, like you play Crossy Road, and it was like within 2 weeks there were people that had 99999 coins. Yeah. And that if you have that problem, you're doing pretty good because that means like 1 million people are playing your stuff. So whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I would also say it's pretty simple to implement. I mean, the first time you do it, there's a learning curve, but once you've done it once, it doesn't take a lot of time. So if you've got a game that has a point structure, geez, just throw a leaderboard in there. You know what I mean? Come up with a couple of achievements. Not everybody's going to love it, but there's a subset of people that do love it, and it's pretty easy to implement. So there's really no downside.
That's good to know.
Yeah, I don't see the reason either. In fact, I only see an upside, and I also think that the Android equivalent is just as important.
That's definitely good to know, Eric. I mean, I didn't put it in for...
Okay, go ahead. I keep jumping in on people. Go ahead, shoot.
I was talking over. I didn't put it in for Segreta, I think to my detriment. I think the next release is going to have a lot of different changes. And it sounds like I better make Game Center / Google Gameplay Services, I think is what it is. God, it's a mouthful. I think that's going to have to be in there too. I think going back to... I'm going to let you go because I was about to change the subject.
Oh, I was just going to say the only hard part about it for me is the coding was easy. It's just doing the art. I'm a non-art guy, so anything art is like a super challenge for me. To make 10 interesting icons is... I just posted a link in here where the last time I did it was 2 years ago, and the only reason we did it quickly was because somebody else got to do all the art for the icons and the
Sure.
stuff there.
Man, you need to buy some icon packs.
Yeah, I need to come up with... I've been thinking about doing this and coming up with like a base kit of awards and just like trimming them differently for different games, so it's like they all have the same basic theme.
There you go. I mean, you don't really have to worry about is it so great for Game Center as so much as is it functioning and okay for Game Center. If you want to get featured by Apple. I mean, you don't want to get featured by Apple. A good thing to start off is don't have Game Center. Don't make promotional banners to begin with. Don't contact Apple directly. Those are and say I want to get. I mean, I don't know if you watched the latest developer video that Apple made for. I mean, you really should then. You really should go to the latest. What's that thing where Apple they get together and they have their big Apple off? I don't know.
WWDC.
Yeah. Well, the video in that one, it even has like almost like instructions on how to get featured. You know what I'm saying? It's like contact us with your proposal as to why you should get featured, and that's exactly what people do. That's what my friends do. I mean, and they will look at your stuff and be like, okay, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no.
This is why Eric is amazing, because we can benefit from the knowledge of a game dev who sits at home all day, game deving, while we're doing whatever the hell it is we're doing. So now we get to benefit from his genius.
Oh, shucks, guy.
We get to glean his knowledge. Hey, no, but
that video's huge. The video's huge. It's right after they start talking about how they've given out $5 billion in apps last year, in app cash, and it's really interesting. It's got point by point of how to get your stuff in there. One other interesting thing, I don't know if you ever with Game Center, you can pull in your friends and their high scores.
Yeah.
You can pull that stuff into the game, and like one of the best uses I've ever seen of that, again, is my friend Matt's game, Crossy Road, when he has your friend's score written on the road if you get to the point where you're passing them. And stuff like that is just it's just really good for. I haven't used
this name dropper over here.
No, but there's also, I mean, going back to just the Corona implementation of it too. I mean, they make it really easy to say, make a Game Center button and you tap it, and it's going to open up the native Game Center, console that shows you that stuff. But speaking of another group of developers who I think did something cool with it was Puck. So the Laser Dog guys, it was their first game, which I just think is it's like a masterclass in really elegant design. I think it's a fun game. I think it looks great. I think it plays great, and they really fine-tuned every element. So even their leaderboards, they don't use I think you can get to it, but by default it doesn't show you like the native thing. They load up that data, they put it in their own font, they use their own color scheme, and they lay it out. It's a beautiful game. And I think all they did was a leaderboard. I mean, it's not like they did anything super duper special, but it adds something. Their menus are better for having it, for sure. And it gives you an incentive to keep playing.
Very good. Have you played their latest one? Their
Hopico, yeah, because I got on the
Hopico?
beta thanks to you. Yeah, I've been bad about sending them feedback about it, but frankly, it's because it played great. I played it through to just about to completion with. It didn't feel like a beta. It felt ready for release, and it's interesting because it's not as it feels like has more of a beginning, middle, and end than their last games. I'll be curious to see how it does in that sense. Oh boy, I'm hearing that echo. I'm sorry, guys.
Yeah, no, but it's a great game. I put a link in the chat to the laserdog.co.uk, and it's got some great video there, trailer stuff.
I feel like I mention them a lot, and I promise I'm not a shill for them. I don't even really know them. I mean, I've Twittered against them a couple of times, but
I get to call you a shill now.
No, but I think they're good. I think they're good for the platform because they're getting featured by Apple and they're getting some good press, and they seem to be committed to using Corona, and that's good for everybody.
Well, I think the biggest thing in it for me is just that I see their stuff as very playful, right? They explore like ideas, not just the mechanic or the graphics, but even the audio. It's just fun.
Yeah.
I got a technical question for you guys, iOS guys. What's the swipe, hand gesture, whatever I need to do to search for apps on my device by their what do you call it? Search by name.
Pull down from the home screen. Just pull down from not from the very top, because that's going to bring down the notifications thing. But put your thumb somewhere in the middle and swipe down.
Hey, you're the man. I got too many I'm always downloading games and testing them, and I've got them all organized to the point where I don't know where they're at.
Hey, Steven.
Speaking of testing, talk about your game.
Which game?
I don't know, whichever one you sent the email out for.
Yeah. I can't really talk too much about it on the show because we're not ready to release yet, but I did send it out to some folks who are here. But mostly the question is we're trying to figure out which art theme to use as our, the launch art theme.
Talk about how important themes are. I want to know more about why you didn't have a theme when you started to begin with.
Well, we got one. We're just not sure that we like that one as the. We've got 11. Okay, so the game itself, not talking about what the game is, has 11 currently art packs that come with it, and we're probably going to do 15. And 1 or 2 of those will be free, and the rest of them will be in-app purchase via coins, consumables, that route. And so we're just trying to select one for sure as the free theme if we do one. And we're not sure. The problem is we were discussing it today, and this is a common problem, I think, is as developers, we work on our games or applications for a long time, and we become very bad judges of things like how to play the game, because we know, how to get help in the game, and little details about which of the whatever features, if we provide them, looks best, because we've seen it a million times, and we know what we like already. So I'm just trying to get somebody else's opinion here.
That sounds good. Hey, I actually wanted to. I think that brings up a really good point. I don't really see any more. Maybe I'm not looking hard enough, but I don't see that much promotion of the Corona beta group that's up on Facebook. Is there a lot of life on that? Do any of you guys keep an eye on it? Is there?
I feel like I see posts from it every couple of days.
Which Corona group on Facebook?
I was saying the beta tester group or whatever.
I don't see much from them. The review group, Corona Indie Developers,
that's what I'm thinking of.
Much higher traffic group than the beta group.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I was just curious because that would be a good place for you to post there. Now, I just think it's always interesting when you see a game in development and then you see people trying to get feedback on it, like when it's 75, 85% done, because it's like, what is working, what isn't working, and I think having this forum is great for that purpose, because then you can actually figure out, you can get feedback from, where was I talking about that? I forgot where now that I'm thinking about it, but it's getting feedback from other Corona developers is like, integral. That's got to be huge, just because they would know better what works, what doesn't, and how to fix what isn't working.
I've actually had really good luck just handing the game off to my friends, like, in person. Because you can, usually they're not developers, and I can see how they go into it and kind of their thought process, and where they get confused and where they just blow through, and I say, no, you're supposed to do all these other things. But
So, Laura, what do? Do you just pop open the trunk and just hand them a record? I said, do you just pop open the trunk and hand them a record and be like, try this, throw this on? You're going to love it. How do you hand it off to them?
Oh, well, I'll just be there and, give them my phone, and I'll be on my phone.
Got it.
So you just walk up to strangers and hand them your phone and hope they don't run away?
Well, usually I know the person. And
Oh, okay.
Try my
If
game.
they run off with your phone, it's time to get a new one.
No, I've had people at indie dev conventions, I'm just standing around and people just go up and say, hey, play my game and tell me what you think. And, it's a little awkward, but it's direct and it works.
That's like the creepy uncle approach,
Yeah.
I don't think we could pull that off. Yeah, I don't know. I was actually.
But you're right. Laura's right. I wanted to say that Laura's approach, I think, is a good approach. You get somebody to play it, and you don't tell them anything. You just stand there and look over their shoulder and you watch.
Mm-hmm. And take notes, totally.
Yeah, well, either have a very good memory or take notes. But right.
You guys prefer the layman, not in any negative connotation, but you prefer.
No, I prefer both. I prefer both. You were also correct, but I was just commenting on the fact that Laura's approach is well accepted and I believe correct, is to give it to people who have no bias.
Gotcha. Two halves of a whole. Understood.
Yeah. Well, just because the people that are buying my apps, I make apps for young children, and I'm trying to gain older audiences. But it's usually not games for developers; it's games for kids and adults. So if I give them just to usually the adults, it's easier for them to be able to say, oh, I like this or I like that. Whereas a developer might be like, oh, you can optimize this, or do more technical things that really my audience wouldn't be as concerned about.
Yeah, and that's kind of the serious part, is to target your target audience. I mean, who do you expect to buy this? Those are the people that are going to really need to play it and to look at it. I think one thing that I did that really helped for me is I did the same thing. I handed off my game to my friends, 2 kids that play Minecraft, and they got through level 1 in like 6 minutes. Completely horrified me, because I was like, I can't make a 6-minute role-playing game. My wife would take like 40 minutes on that level, and these little kids did it in 6.
Oh my god.
Yeah, so
the Arctic game that we were talking about before, I made it, I thought I was like, oh, this is going to be difficult for everybody, and I gave it to my one friend, and she beat it, like, perfect score in, 2 minutes, same thing. I was like, oh, God, this is... I set up so many obstacles, and you didn't hit any of them, and you just cruised right through it. So I still have to go back and make it harder, and,
My guess is, though, you've handed it to somebody else, and they still haven't gotten past the first obstacle, right?
No, they beat it. They beat the whole game, first try. And I was like, this is bad.
You need to get a pool of people who don't know how to play games.
She didn't know how to play.
You got to go find the business suit wearers. You got to run over to Aubon Payne.
I got through the game too, but Laura might actually have a point.
No, but a really good litmus test, I feel, is like, if you can give it to somebody and say, here, try this, and don't, if you need to spend 5 minutes explaining it to them, the odds are pretty good you might be doing something a little bit wrong, because it's very telling to give it to someone, because you've been living with it, right? You know it inside and out, so you are a really bad judge of whether something is intuitive or not. So giving it to somebody and not saying anything and just watching is very instructive.
Laura, do you have a link to your to that app?
No, it's not up yet. It's still.
It's not up yet.
It's been in production for 2 years and running.
You just have to be somewhere where you can hand them your
You
phone.
gotta be in the know.
Have I told you how awesome it is?
Yeah. Well, see, that's.
Are you up for some show and tell? Do you feel like you could run it in the simulator and screen share?
Oh, I can if it's running. You guys can see me do like a 30-second playthrough if I can get it going on the screen here.
That's bumping right there.
Oh, sorry. How do you get the screen up?
You'll have to do on the left-hand side.
Sorry.
Yeah,
You see that little green arrow on the left-hand side?
Green arrow.
You'll have to mouse over to get the menu to fly out.
It's like a green
Oh,
square. With, yeah.
Oh, and by the way, when you give your device for somebody else to test it and watch them, that's referred to as usability testing. It's a very common technique.
You'll want to minimize your window, your browser.
Good thinking. Okay. So this is the game. You start into it. Can everybody see okay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you start into it. I'll just play easy. And it's based on the real story of a whole bunch of guys who are trying to find the Northwest Passage. So these are the 3 historical boats that you go through. And then you name your whole crew and everything. And then you select your food so you don't starve.
I like the little dice rolling thing to randomly get names.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, and these are all like historical names. You know, this was a real captain. These were all real guys. You really need lemons because there's like scurvy built into this.
That's right. You got to earn your salt.
You got a real Oregon Trail vibe going here with some.
Yeah, and you can change your names. So I made like the whole IRC group.
Oh, absolutely. You can kill your friends horribly. That's one of the fun parts.
I remember playing this during Ship Jam.
Yes. This is actually the Ship Jam version.
Okay.
Oh, I'm out of food. So you kind of go through, and it's got the tutorial, and you go through the game, and you can kind of see everything that you've got, and you can hunt. There's like walruses and fish, and they all bounce. You can get meat from it, and then so the whole idea is that you go through these different passages, and there's certain forks in the road, and you have to find your way all the way to basically Alaska, and then hopefully you don't die on the way. And then hopefully some of your guys do die because it's very. I set up all kinds of interesting deaths. And that was why it was upsetting when people were winning. Have you seen Brenda Romero's TED Talk on creating games on difficult topics? No.
Yeah, I'll find the link while you guys are talking and put it in the chat. But basically, she does a great job of saying, basically historical events where horrible things have happened. She's trying to create games that immerse the children into the story and then have it be more practical to them than just a classroom session where they don't really have any sort of relationship to the topic.
Right.
And
well, that's what I wanted to do with this, is kind of include some educational content behind it, and then also everything that goes through in the game. All of the ships are real. All of the animals that you encounter will be realistic. And so for as much as I can make it, it's pretty true to form, and I tried to make it sensitive and also not like your friend has died horribly, just like all these other people. But I tried to.
Does anybody get dysentery?
Has somebody made a Donner Party video game? It'd be a total downer, but somebody should do it.
You should do it.
Well, you can actually eat your people in Northwest Passage.
Jason, it looked like there was a mod for Oregon Trail. There you go.
Well, Alex already knows my plan. It's too grand in scope for me to wrap my brain around it now, but eventually I'm going to make Sim Cult. So the idea is to build your cult.
Which is genius. I remember we were talking about that. It was a fantastic idea. It was kind of like that prison sim that you guys were talking about as that they pushed out. What was that for one of the game jams?
Yeah.
They never really followed through with the game, I think, but they were like a big professional crew out in like Vietnam or Thailand.
Yeah, they did. Prison Life RPG, right? That came out. It's like
Yeah, but that was also a Ship Jam entry, and we were like, what? That's kind of crazy.
Wait, which game? I'm sorry.
You remember the prison game that they submitted? Like these guys.
Oh yeah, that was
different. They came out and killed it. Did awesome.
Did it?
Yeah.
Oh, that's good.
You're like, where's my kickback?
No,
no kickbacks. It's already cracked. Prison Life RPG 1.35 cracked APK here. I search these things when you guys talk.
Ed, if you don't have your game pirated or cracked, no one's seen it.
Exactly, you're doing something wrong.
Nobody cares about you. You don't exist.
So true.
I see.
Everybody wants to be like Mike, Ed.
Where did I read that? Where some people will actually put their stuff out already cracked, like so that they can lead gen to the real stuff.
Yeah, you put the disabled stuff out. There's a long and storied history of people making their own cracked games.
The hornet's nest.
Yeah.
Do not kick the hornet's nest.
Don't kick the hornet's nest.
Are you saying that's a bad idea, Eric? I always thought that was an amazing act of trolling right there.
No, I just let them pirate it.
But what if you put it in and like every time they shot like an enemy, they got hurt or something like that? Like I always thought that was such an amazing idea.
Well, to name drop more, I actually had these friends. I actually had friends that made this game called Gunner Z. It came out a while ago, and it was done with the Unreal Engine. It was really cool, but they did some kind of check online, like some verification check, and it turns out it would just shut your game down if it was pirated. But that made the guys on the pirate forums furious, and the game was free, so they had huge campaigns to just one-star the thing. I don't mess with the hornet's nest. There's always gonna be a hornet's nest in the woods. I just don't poke it with any sticks.
I have a funny story about the time I tried to protect my game that Eric will remember.
Oh yeah, I do remember this. It was good.
It was my first game, and I was concerned about sending it out for testers and to test flight, and I didn't know the security of any of these things. So some guys from the IRC chat room helped me put in a time check, and it would see, if it's past 2 weeks past, the date that I set it, to just shut down the game and exit out of the game. And so, I sent it out for testing, and everything came back, and so I sent it off to Apple, and it was approved, and I was so happy, and it was my first app, and then that 2 weeks
Uh-oh.
every single person that had supported me and downloaded my first game and everything, they all got a game that was completely broken. You couldn't get into it at all. It just shut down immediately. And that was the last time I tried to copy protection.
Did Apple play nice with your request for an expedited review on the?
Very nice. They did give me the expedited review. I was like, oh my god, I'm so sorry. You have to help me.
I've actually had good luck with them in the past when I've needed to do that. When I've had a legitimate time-sensitive reason for something. You get the impression real people are reading the requests, and if you ask nice and you have a good reason, they'll just do it.
Absolutely. I've done it twice, and I've gotten through both times.
I think that brings up a really good point. Like, I think I see this in the forums a lot too, where people are like, "Hey, how do I, protect my game? Tell me about Google licensing, this, that, and the other thing, whatever." Of course, all of those pieces are important. They're definitely good pieces of the puzzle. But is it cost effective to try to make your game copy protected? Is it worth your time? See, I don't think so either. But I don't want to be I always say that in the forums, and I also see people when they're like, oh, is this copyrighted? Do you think I can use this or the other thing? And I'm like, look, if you need to spend more than 2 minutes thinking about whether or not you're going to violate a copyright, you might as well just throw it out and start with something else, because that's useless. Like, obviously it's not unique enough, and it's probably not going to be cool enough to really get a hook. Like, to name drop, I know Eric, and Eric knows these people who made Crossy Road, and I don't think they thought for 2 seconds about whether or not that game was going to violate, copyright, because they knew it wasn't. It was a brand new game. It was kind of like Frogger, but who cares? Like, it was close enough, and they just went on with it, and it was great.
Well, it's also, you can't copyright a mechanic. You can copyright the images in the game, and you can copyright the actual code, machine-readable code of the game, and you can copyright the human-readable code, but you can't copyright, like, a game mechanic. So, like, the jumping in Mario, like, they had to let go of that and let other people do platforms. If it's just the mechanics that you're copying, I've sat in on too many video game lawyer panels, and that's kind of the thing.
That sounds like oodles of fun, man. Maybe we could talk about that on the next After Dark.
No, but it's an interesting thing because I'm actually right now working on sort of an unofficial reboot of a game that's like 20+ years old. It was made for It was released by a company called Ambrosia Software, who was like one of the few folks making Mac games back in the 90s. And I've reached out to them a couple of times and said, you know, hey, and there's a precedent for this. There's a guy who did a reboot of one of their games, apparently with their blessing, and he did a straight-up copy. I mean, he used the assets, he used the music, he used everything else, and I'm not. I'm you know, it's more of a fan homage. I'm messing with some of the scoring mechanics and some of the other stuff, but you know, it's a loving ripoff. You know, and they make iOS stuff now. Not so much now. They haven't put out much lately, but they had lots of opportunity, and this was not for OS 10. I mean, this was 1994, so this thing plays in OS 9. You know, but I've reached out to them and said, hey, you know, so I'd love to maybe use some of your original art, some of it, maybe some of the music, if you're cool with that. I heard back from one guy who wasn't in a position to say that, and he said, well, email this guy, and I did, and I haven't heard back. So I'm marching ahead, but not using any of their stuff. I'm going to use the name until somebody tells me I can't. From what I'm told, they didn't get a trademark for it. So, you know, I believe I can use it. You know, if I were to get a cease and desist, I'd play nice with that.
Check like the trademark database. You can look those up online.
I did, and they did not obtain one. So, you know, it's and from what
What would you do? What would you do if they came to you and said, "Hey, jerk, you're using our name. Stop using it"?
I would stop using it.
Neener.
But here's the thing. I think my brother actually did some pixel art for them for a game back in the day. I mean, you know, and like I said, there's a precedent. There is a game out there that uses their name, uses their assets, and I got in touch with him, that developer, and said, so what was the process like for you? They didn't want any money from him. They asked him to put their logo in, you know, the credits thing. So it
Jason,
sounds like...
I don't know. This is my personal opinion. I don't know that I would even go down that route. I mean, if you want to use it in your marketing materials to say, hey, this game, you know, use the name of the game in your description, blah, 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 blah. But as soon as you start naming something, you know, now you're like, I mean, you're going to put a lot of time and effort into it, and then if you get that cease and desist letter, if you've already said that you would take it down or change it or whatever.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I've received cease and desist letters.
Yeah.
Multiple times for different things, and let me just say it's you feel powerless. I mean, there's nothing you can do. What are you going to do, right? You're going to hire a lawyer.
You're going to
spend money. Yeah, you're going to desist, right? And all that effort and all that time that you spent in doing whatever it is that you're doing, you're kind of like, well, okay, that sucks.
I think you would just change the name though, not to.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, I would just change the name because like you said, it's incorporating the core mechanic, but I've taken a number of liberties. It's not the same game, and it uses none of their assets. And like I said, there is a precedent with another guy who clearly, yeah, I don't know.
Well, look, I mean, Eric's Questlord is a lot like Shadowgate. I mean, it's pretty, you know, it's like you said, you can't trademark mechanics, just like Laura was saying, you know. So I don't think you're gonna run afoul of that. What I'm talking about is like somebody was like, hey, I found these Homer Simpson assets, and they said they weren't trademarked. So do you think it's cool if I use them? And I'm like, dog, come on, man. Come on. This isn't a real question. You must be crazy. Like, obviously. So I'm talking about stuff like that. Like, and you know, what's the point of even trying to figure it out? Like, I think Rob was on one of those threads, and somebody was like, hey, I've got this really awesome idea for a game that incorporates all of the superheroes from all of the major, you know, comic book universes, Marvel, DC, Dark Horse, blah, blah. He's like, do you think it would be okay if I use their images? And I'd be like, look,
no,
obviously. And then Rob was like, you know, who is a Dynamite guy, of course, awesome dude. He's like, you know what you could do is you could email them, get in touch, and see if they would be interested in licensing, because of course they do that every once in a while. I'm like, yeah, you could definitely do that, but we're not, you know, Steven, you know what I mean? Maybe Stephen J has got the clout to start emailing, you know, the head of Fox and be like, hey, you guys interested in a crossover? You want to do some revenue share? But I don't know if the little guys like us just swat us away like a fly.
I've seen smaller companies take on these bigger licenses, and that's something that I'm personally trying to get into is doing the licensing kind of deal, because I feel like once you do get these big brands and these familiar names attached to your game, you know, it's so much of what I feel like is driving downloads these days. You know,
I completely agree with you, Laura. I mean, if you look at like Telltale with Game of Thrones and stuff like that, probably like they weren't huge before they got that license, and now it's Telltale Games, Game of Thrones. Like it's before that time. You know what I mean? I totally hear what you're saying.
They were so much better before they started doing that, though. Sam and Max was good. Sam and Max was good, but the Puzzle Agent was freaking awesome, and it was a totally original IP. Actually, maybe not. It was based on, I think, somebody's. But that was a fun game. They
lost their soul. They lost their fastball.
Have you guys ever played that one? Puzzle Agent. Go download it, man. That's a fun game.
I haven't played it. I haven't.
And it was like Telltale before they were Telltale.
We got like a Radiohead fan over here that was down from like '94.
No, I think they were already doing the Sam and Max episodic stuff at that time.
Which is a hit for sure.
Doing the Sam and Max thing was great.
We know who they are.
More right? LucasArts reboots, please. For God's sakes. I love those games.
And that's the thing. And now people that have no idea about anything, right, about any kind of, mobile publishing or mobile games, so like Game of Thrones, they made a game on the iPhone, I'm there. Like, forget it. Like, obviously that's going to be on my phone. So I hear what you're saying, but I'm talking more like I think the difference between big and, like, conglomerate is, I guess, is a stone's throw away. Do you know what I mean? Like, Game of Thrones, that's a big license, for sure. Nobody can deny it. That's a big deal. But when you're talking about, like, I'm talking like Marvel, DC, you know what I mean? Like, you can't penetrate that. Like, they got their own in-house studio with, like, a bunch of Bengalese,
I don't know, man, because I talked to this. I was at this party and I was talking to a publisher that I won't name for whatever privacy, but I was interested in them because I was saying, you have a lot of these, big name books. Do you have an in-house? You must have an in-house app department, or how else would you get these apps? And they say, no, not really. We just hire people, whoever wants to do it or whatever. I was surprised. I thought they would have this whole in-house. It's a big publisher.
Yeah, you got it. I'm not even trying. I'm not like making an argument by any stretch of the imagination. By any stretch. The Cat in the Hat. Is that yours, Eric?
Yeah, that's one of my last licenses I worked on. For game, it was kind of interesting because before the indie thing even existed, like back in the early 2000s, we all had to deal with publishers, and I really wasn't lucky enough to get like into the PC publishing with my studio or whatever. But my studio was able to survive with licensing through Nintendo. We made a bunch of Nintendo games that were like original, but there wasn't like an e-store, Nintendo store. I made a bunch of original games that I couldn't afford the bandwidth because there wasn't something like itch.io that had that infrastructure set up to buy games. And Nintendo was just not interested in doing anything that's going to compete with their titles, like the Mario Worlds and all their stuff. And that's not only on Nintendo platforms, but published by Nintendo. So they would be like, they would tell us, go work with publishers. And we'd be like, okay, and we'd go to those publishers, with our creative stuff, and, they would be like, you know what, we just spent, $500,000 on Scooby-Doo or Dora the Explorer.
I worked on the Scooby-Doo game.
What's that?
I worked on the Scooby-Doo game. That was my one last Scooby-Doo and the Dragon of something.
Exactly. That's what publishers do, and a lot of these people, they go and they just snatch up the rights to do it, and then they hire outsource studios.
We were an animation studio. We had to do the animations for the cutscenes.
Sure. So I mean, that's like a lot of times you would think that like Marvel would have an in-house studio, but a lot of Marvel stuff is set up through deals like through Warner Brothers and stuff like that, and licensing is still a very viable way to get. So I mean, you're kind of selling your creativity because you're at their mercy now. You're almost like an employee, which is cool. I mean, I'm all down for it. It's not my strategy anymore, but it's it's definitely a legitimate strategy that's still out there.
Well, let me pull my head out of my ass then. Obviously,
oh no, I didn't mean it that way, Alex.
No, totally. It's true. Because when I'm talking about, I've got my head in the sand, and I'm like, look, you guys, these companies are never going to deal with us. We just need to do it on our own. You're absolutely right. No, you're absolutely right. I mean, I freelance just as much as the next guy, so I should know better.
Yeah, and like what Laura said, it's exactly like that. Just meeting a publisher and going and talking to a publisher, cold calling publishers. Like, maybe
works.
another thing to do is to find licenses that are out there, and then and then find who the guy is that made it or what studio made it. Go look at the
That's
studio.
the hard part. It's who owns it.
Yeah, and go look at the studio who made it, and can you compete against that studio? Can you call, Cartoon Network up and be like, hey, I've got this game, it's such and such, what, and you might just get walked in. Chances are you'll get, door in your face over and over again, but still. I mean, I've done like the Spy Kids game, I did like the Earthworm Jim game, that was a license basically for it. We didn't create Earthworm Jim, it was already done, we just did the port. I mean, there was a lot of licensing involved in that, and so yeah, it's really amazing how close you can get. I also was doing a trade for. I was working with it was my own studio, but it was Acclaim Entertainment and Fox Interactive, and we did Bart's Nightmare, the old SNES game. We were bringing that to Game Boy Advance, and we got like all the way to beta, and the whole thing got canceled.
Oh.
That's one thing another about it. It's like you don't really own the rights to what you make.
No.
I mean, you get profits and stuff, but it's not yours. It's just like in your portfolio piece. But licensing.
Yeah, after having enough of my own properties, I'd trade some for a big pile of money.
Yeah, I got no worries. Yeah, I mean,
Now you guys are getting on my bandwagon.
Where were you last week, Laura? We were talking about that.
Oh, I'm sorry.
How
I'm
likely are you to sell your baby?
Northwest Passage.
Right. Not literally, baby.
It could be a
Unless there's profit in that too.
Disney picked that one up. I love
That's
that game.
the current discussion in the Wall Street Journal, but all right.
It is no good. It's no good at all.
No joke at all. Okay.
So, all right, yeah. I mean, yeah, licensing I definitely think is key. I mean, is that gonna make? I mean, if you start making games with Corona with these, here or there licenses, is that gonna, sorry, I lost my train of thought. Is that, is developing mid-market games with legit licenses going to get you some eyeballs on Corona? Is that going to evangelize, Ed? Jason, Laura, what do you think?
It did for Shaq.
Did it for Shaq? Because I feel like it didn't for Shaq.
Burn.
I think that's terrible. I think
I don't know. I'm asking. I don't know the answers, obviously.
I think any success story evangelizes as long as Corona is mentioned somewhere in the discussion. If it's not mentioned, then there's no chance of evangelizing.
You don't think a failure can evangelize, or do you?
No. What I'm saying is a failure or a success.
Okay.
Not mentioning Corona doesn't evangelize, because how do you know, right?
Right. Okay.
But yeah, definitely either can. Anything that gets news, anything that gets eyeballs, evangelizes. Although I kind of think that I would prefer to have successes getting eyeballs.
Agreed. Hey, maybe I missed this part before, but maybe you guys answered this already, and this is something that's being covered already. Why do you want more eyeballs on Corona? Can you talk about that?
I can go if nobody else wants to.
Did you talk about it already? I don't want to go over.
No. Just in a nutshell, the more people that you have in a community, the better. So it's just like the economy. It can only grow. If it doesn't grow, it dies. So we need Corona to grow, to get more diversity in terms of user base and usage. And I think I've always felt that we need to continue to grow the community. That's all I got to say on that.
Is there like a community? Well, Rob,
Cool.
Rob left. Is
Rob
Rob like
had-
a community mentor?
Ask that again, please.
Is Rob isn't he like in charge of kind of community developer relations?
I'm not
I
sure
don't
if
know.
he is or not,
Yeah,
but
I don't know
he
if that's
said
his title, but
he isn't doing or doesn't do the evangelizing in the sense that I was mentioning.
That's I just oh, I forget her name. There was a really great woman who used to work for Corona, and she did the mailing lists, and she got everybody involved with lots of contests.
Yeah, Ina.
I'm sorry.
Ina.
Yeah, Traeger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, it's great.
She did a great job of it. She was very like rah rah about the whole thing, but then she left for a different
I think
position.
that was her job. I mean,
Yeah, she did PR and she worked with getting news articles and the whole bit. Yeah.
Yeah, she was really wonderful at that, but I don't know if they put a new person in to do that when she left. Because I
No.
noticed the newsletters have been not as bubbly.
Yeah, they didn't do that, and and we have meetups. There's a bunch of meetup groups, speaking events and things like that. So that's, evangelizing is a broad topic.
There's
Yeah,
this.
I mean, we're doing it right now.
Exactly.
Right.
There's this. We're talking about it. We're getting into it. I mean, I don't know. Does it need to be glossy? I wasn't saying that there's a reason not to evangelize. I just wanted to set the baseline. Like,
No, but
It's kind of a bad word because it gives you the wrong impression of what I'm saying.
what's that?
Go on.
Evangelize?
Go ahead, Jason, and then I'll have my speech.
Well, no, you first. You first.
Okay, so I just wanted to say that evangelize kind of gives it a wrong spin. What I'm trying to say is that there was a time when Corona was only mobile, and I think that we would have lost some people who would have come over and said, that's a possibility. Oh, what? No desktop? I'm out of here. And so that's where the discussion for me started. I think it's time for us to go out and say, hey, you guys who turned away, we're here, and we have desktop coming, so you should consider it because this is a very easy to develop for a platform. Or SDK, with SDK.
And I think, I really hope that Corona Labs as a company sort of, it's still in beta, so it's not out yet, but when it comes time to do a marketing push, I think they should, and listen, the guys, Fire Maple Games is already really fired up about this and has got working versions of Grizzly Manor and other stuff. And I think, if we can be strategic about it, time a launch for OS 10 for these things for when it comes out of beta and when you can put a press release out and say this is a million seller on iOS that is now for OS 10 and look how easy it was to do. Let's try and get it featured by Apple at the same time. Maybe get it ready for Steam and get Steam to put a press release out or to mention it, and you know what I mean? It's like because it's I think you're right, Ed. This has the potential to be a not a turning point, but a watershed moment in terms of platform reach. And so we capitalize on that
because it opens up Corona to people who previously would have turned away or did turn away.
Well, if it were up to me, if I were Corona, I'd be going to all these indie festivals. I go to them occasionally, and they have. Corona's been at a couple of them. The Boston Festival of Indie Games, they had a table. And, a lot of it was very developer-centric. So there were a lot of people coming by to see what the software did and whatnot. And that seemed like a really good face-to-face, like, here's the software, here's what you can do with it, way to, get out into the game development community.
Yeah, I know there for a year or so, we did events and would get a booth, and spend $10,000 or whatever, on a square in the middle of a crowded floor someplace, and it would be very, you hand out some business cards, people come by and look at stuff, things like that. But it was hard to gauge whether or not it was effective or not.
Yeah, especially at those price points.
I think Jason's actually got the right idea. The best way to evangelize, to use that word again, is to have success stories and to time them right to co-join or conjunct, I think, maybe that's the right word, with other events.
Yeah, guerrilla marketing as opposed to some sort of big flashy thing.
And I'm okay with the word evangelist because I mean, to me, the prototype for this was Guy Kawasaki in the '90s, and he was an evangelist for Apple, and I think that makes it sound like he's out. He's selling snake oil, but that's not what he was doing. What he was doing was enriching a community. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know.
I agree with Ed. Evangelize is a terrible word, but I mean, there's no better word for it.
There's a worse word. You could say proselytize.
Yeah, but they all do it, right? Who's the guy? What's his name? Who did Blast Monkeys, and now he's an evangelist for Microsoft games.
Blast Monkeys.
It was a Corona game. It was a decent hit for Android a couple of years ago.
Oh, before I forget, I just wanted to say way back, roll back to your thing where you're talking about using the name from the game. I'm be curious to see what happens if you do so when you release it on Android, because Google Play has this whole like auto parse thing where they go through your description. And I got, speaking of not liking to get cease and desists, I didn't even get so far as a cease and desist. I just got a Google telling me, if you don't fix this, this is going to be a strike against you.
Oh, well, at least they let you know.
Yeah, so you may, because they use their search engine, you know, it's like, geez, didn't even bother to ask. I explicitly spelled out, this is just a referral. I'm just referring to this idea. You know, it's like, this is not a copy.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I will release for Android at some point, but my secret hope is to maybe try and get in touch with Apple and maybe get a feature, because I do think it harkens back to you know, the base of people who were gaming on a Mac in the 90s. There weren't that many of us, but I think the people who did it are still really committed to the whole Apple thing in general.
You and 9 other people.
Yeah.
But they may have 8 kids by now, so they could be more.
Yeah.
Tobias Marks was the.
That's it. Thank you.
Well, I mean, yes, all that sounds wonderful. I'm excited about evangelizing. I'm totally into it, obviously. I don't want to sound like I'm hating on it. I'm just trying to be devil's advocate to kind of, you know, get information on what it is. I mean,
I think when you enthusiastically tell somebody about something and you're genuinely excited about it, you've done your evangelizing. I don't think you need to, you know, bust anybody's door in and make them listen to you. I mean, you're just going to be you, and that will reflect positively on the platform.
This is going to blow your mind, Charles, but that doesn't always go over so great with me. I need to come on less me. I need to be less of me. I need to slice in a little Jason, maybe some Ed, some Charles. Got to get some Eric in there for sure.
You like the headlock version of evangelism? The I'm going to give you noogies until you try it sort of thing?
First off, I gotta make sure I don't have my head completely shaved so I don't look like a Krishna. Not that there's anything wrong with Krishnas, don't get me wrong, but, you know, once you start approaching people in my robes, they get kind of scared. But as far as getting, you know, people to use Corona because they're, you know, we have the ability to deploy to desktop, Windows, and Mac. We're just talking about games. Do you guys have any thoughts on what besides games can be used with this, or absolutely not? Do you think it's just completely useless for anything but?
Oh, you mean desktop? For
desktop, yeah, desktop and Mac.
Oh, I got a whole list of things that are not games. I'm very excited about the not games uses.
Okay.
I'm not spelling them out quite yet.
No, of course not, Ed. You don't want to give away the cow. Come on.
No, it's just too. If I talk about an idea too early, it kind of, I don't know about you guys, but it kind of turns me off to the development. So I need to get in there and play with it first. So, but I've been jonesing for desktop for a long time. So excited.
Good. Okay. Well, all right. So yeah. See, I was thinking about it too, and then I was like, wait, how come nobody else is talking about it? Because maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm the crazy one. Because I was thinking about all kinds of non-game things. You know, all kinds of non-game shit that you could put on it. But then everybody's like, yeah, what about these games? What about this game? I'm scared. Okay, good. I'm glad I'm not the only one.
Ed, where do you plan to distribute?
Distribute which?
Whatever.
I think your non-game apps.
Yeah, your non-game apps.
That's a damn good question, although I'm very glad that Eric brought up itch.io for games. But for distributing the other things, yeah, haven't got the slightest idea.
You need to get that app ring going, Ed.
Seriously?
Gotta get that app ring going. Come on.
Oh, God.
What we should do is, here's what we should do. We gotta get a
suggestion, Charles? The app ring? No.
Hot links.
We get a Patreon going, okay?
$5.
Hot links.
Like AOL style, okay? You get 100 apps on that CD, okay? They're locked, okay? It's a good time. Maybe people will start burning them and passing them around. Boom. All right? You've got yourself a cult following.
That's what I need is a cult.
But we talked about Steam, and they're sort of the big elephant in the room or whatever. But are there other stores out there that maybe don't put so many hurdles in your way, but still have an audience? Like, does GOG, Good Old Games, do they?
No, GOG's brutal.
Really?
Well, I mean, GOG takes a lot of percentage. It's really good, you know, if you've got like a AAA team thing.
Yeah.
Well, honestly, I mean, I haven't really seen the depth of very much Corona games that could stand on Steam.
Mm.
You had these people, wanting to release for Steam stuff. But I haven't really seen the actual Steam type games.
Hey, Eric, can you talk also about? I think you and I were discussing the challenges of Steam as well. I don't think you guys talked about that yet. I was interested because I think we were talking about how mobile first was kind of looked down upon.
Yeah, mobile is extremely. I think I brought that up briefly about the Chess Brothers game. One of their games that they converted from mobile to Steam. It just doesn't have the same reviews. I mean, because with Steam you can get like these really in-depth games that have 20-man teams working on them.
Mm-hmm.
And how do you compete against that when you're coming to mobile and you've got like a couple of odd shapes that kind of
I mean, and with the way Eric was describing it, he saw like a review for that Trace Brothers game, and somebody was like, Charlton Heston and Soylent Green, where they're like, "I'll have you know that this was a mobile game first."
Yeah, totally.
It's like the Scarlet Letter or something.
It's like he unveiled their trickery. That they were trying to fool everyone into thinking it was a PC game.
Diabolical.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I mean, clearly there's a market like that for Steam. But then I look at, and maybe this is just me being a weirdo. But I think the few games I've bought on Steam have been Broken Age, which classic style, coded in Lua. They used Moai, but it's still Lua running it, and the Been There, Dan That, and Time Gentlemen Please, which are like these sort of classics, which were built, I think, on Adventure Game Studio, and they're on there. I mean,
sure. I mean, if you can make that kind of caliber, then you can be on Steam. I still have not seen that kind of caliber from anyone around in Corona in a while.
I mean, that's a good point. I mean, Eric obviously isn't using Corona to push out militants, so I mean, are you ever going to see AAA on that when it isn't just a cash grab? Now, look, that Shaq game is cool, fine, whatever, but I think we can all agree that with that license, I think they were getting in, they were, capitalizing on the license rather than the actual game itself, and then they're getting out, right?
Sure.
Also, Shaq's been doing a thing, like, the store near me started carrying Shaq soda around the same time the Shaq app came out. So maybe Shaq is really on top of his licensing.
Oh, absolutely. I mean,
got that Shaq food working.
Don't say it too loud. We might all get the Shaq attack. He could show up right here.
Oh, goodness, dunk on all of us.
Shazam!
Hey, I've been dying to ask a question, and maybe it's too late in the show. But may I?
You just asked it. You just asked the question.
So the question is have you guys ever developed an application way outside your comfort zone?
Yes.
That's what you got to do. You got to develop only apps outside your comfort zone.
What do you think I've been working on all year?
What have you been working on all year?
Yeah.
An app that's going to take me like another 2 years to finish.
Well, that's not very good for paying the bills this year.
It's awful.
Is that Northwest Passage?
Oh no, Northwest Passage, that one's close to done. There's another one that is just so huge and out of the scope of a one-person developer. It's a decent scope for a mobile game, but just for an indie developer, it's just... I've been working on it since January, and I'm still maybe 10% of the way through.
I feel your pain.
Eric's got that sprint. He's on the sprint. Are you in the middle of that right now, Ed, or was that just a?
Well, I just released an application that's way outside for me, but I was just curious if any of you guys did that kind of thing. I was listening to. I don't remember.
Wait. When you say comfort zone, do you mean your technical comfort zone? Is it like a cross-gender sort of app? What kind of comfort zone? I'm just asking. What kind of comfort zone are we talking about?
Well, for me, it's I don't even know how to describe it other than to show it to you. It's safe to show that one.
Well, what's your technical comfort zone, Ed?
No, it's not outside my technical comfort zone. It's outside my belief zone. How's that?
Okay. So you don't write. So you don't. I mean, I think we all. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I mean, I don't know if that's the question that you're asking. I think everybody does that to some extent. You know what I mean? Like, if you have to, if you get approached by a developer, there's a cat in the comfort zone. If you get approached by a developer, it's like, look, I have a holistic medicine company that deals with shapes and sounds. I need you to make this app, and I'm going to sell it to people, and it's going to cure them. I mean, obviously we can. I mean, hey, I don't know everybody. Maybe obviously is the wrong thing to say, but I think to some degree we can all understand that maybe that might not be the most successful app as far as promoting holistic health is concerned. But I mean, their money's green, so you kind of sometimes need to take it.
I think I know what app you're talking about, Ed, because I saw you put a link to it earlier.
I posted it very much earlier in the show.
And I saw it, and it's funny because I remember looking at it, and I remember thinking, knowing you as I do, not we haven't had deep theological discussions. But I said that wouldn't have been what I thought necessarily you conceived. You necessarily did not conceive that, but you might have. What do I know? Maybe.
Actually, I did come up with it. It's a social experiment.
Okay.
I wanted to do to see what would happen. I was going to make another version that was for people. I'll show it to you in a minute, but it's an application about faith. And I was going to make another version for people not of faith. But I wanted to do an experiment first in the faith crowd to see what would happen.
I'm curious because I haven't downloaded it, but I saw the screenshot. And were those fabricated? There were numbers on that usage.
That was the test. That was the test numbers while I was testing.
Okay, because they were really high. I was like, wow, that's a lot. But
that's very high.
But here's the thing: there's an audience for that, and I don't know that you have to necessarily come from. I think if you. I think there's an audience that is, any sort of faith-based audience. I think I don't know that it needs to be from an insider as long as it's respectful. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm trying to be. I'm not even. Yeah. What I wanted to do was create an application. So what the application does is it lets people share things that have happened to them, regardless of faith or not. But this one's based in Christianity and faith. But I had considered doing one that wasn't. In fact, I was considering doing one for each of the major religions just to see what would happen. But it's a way of sharing things that have happened with you and then having people be able to anonymously respond in such a way that people can't say bad things. You can only say positive things back to people. So it's like a support thing. Anyways, I was wanting to ask about this. I hadn't mentioned that I'd released it, and
I put it's interesting that you say that. I mean, I created an app back in the day with Pocket PC and put it out on Handango, and it did well. It did well. So I mean, I put a link in the chat to the page where I ultimately was, Handango was kind of going downhill and Pocket PC was kind of weird. So, anyway, so yeah, I've experimented with that before, and it works out. It works out well. And now you're going to get into a zone where people are going to start asking you questions that, you not just support questions, right? They're going to start asking you other questions. And you're going to have to figure out what to do with those.
Well, I limited, so in this case, you can download it. I posted the link, and I'll post the link again. But the link's at the very beginning of this discussion here. But I created this in such a way that people cannot inject. One, it's completely anonymous. So you can keep track of your own, the things that you did in the app, but nobody else can find out that it's you. And two, there's no way to respond to somebody else in a negative fashion. You can only be supportive. So I played a long time with the idea of how to do this, and generally I just restricted it down to only positive responses and anonymous. So anyways.
Is there a mechanism for keeping people from being pranksters, being jokesters?
It's practically built into the way it works.
I can already tell you it sounds like you're doing better than Christian Mingle, which I've never used, but based on their commercials, I said, God, at least 30% of that audience is just horrible people that want to that go like, I'm gonna find some people that want to meet a nice Christian boy and pretend to be that.
Well, what about that is out of your comfort zone, Ed? Like, is it the topic that's out of your comfort zone?
Yeah, it's well, like I said, it's out of my belief zone. So, but not in the sense that I believe that it's the right thing. That if somebody, for example, the screen, I'm not showing my screen anymore. So, like, for example, this screen here, where people are saying, hey, let me give you a good example. Like, I lost my home or something. That's something bad that happened to me. Then people can post that out there, and then other people who are watching can respond in a positive manner. And yes, it's an aggregate of responses to other people who have posted the same thing. But the concept is that I wanted to see what would happen if you restricted the avenue in which people could talk about things that are going on in their lives, and people could respond to those things. Would people, in fact, use both sides of that channel?
You know what, Ed?
Sir?
You know what? I totally didn't hear anything you said because you were rocking the Winamp in the side there.
I noticed it too.
I
was like, oh, are you kidding me?
I use Winamp. I'm a Winamp.
I love Winamp.
You're whipping the llama's ass.
Yeah, baby. You gotta love my playlist, but that's all right.
Is that Neil Young? Oh, jeez.
Oh my God, we all know this.
Bow Wow. I love Candy.
Oh, I love it. Love it, love it, love it.
Oh.
Well, hey guys, I'm gonna shoot up a flare and say we got about 10 minutes here. Well,
Yeah.
8 minutes.
Okay, I hijacked our whole discussion.
No,
That's cool.
Ed,
I think it's a good question.
I'm gonna say, Ed, is I think it's okay. I think you're coming at it from a good angle. I think there's nothing wrong with identifying an audience, even if you are not a part of that audience, and creating something that you think they can genuinely use. And just speaking on the moralistic side of it, you're trying to do something nice for people.
Yeah,
So,
man, I did my very best to make it a positive thing. Purely, I mean, regardless of how you wrap it, Christian, Muslim, Buddhist, whatever. What I wanted to do was approach it in this way, and I thought in this case that Christianity was the biggest audience in the Americas that I could focus on to test this, to see if people would do this, if they'd share things in an open forum, but anonymously, and yet other people would respond. So we'll see how it goes.
And there are a lot of apps around just gratitude. Just
What
gratitude,
you've got there, Ed, what you've got there is just Christian WhatsApp, which, I mean, I think a lot of people are going to use. I was just saying, I don't know how I feel about it. Like, that would be interesting. If let's say, go ahead, Eric.
No, I just wanted to bring up, that you've got a $19 in-app purchase in there.
Yeah, I do.
The whole thing. You know how Jesus. I don't know if you know much about it. You know what he did to the money changers in the temple of God?
He flipped their
tables over, man.
over. Oh man, all their MacBooks went right on the floor.
You're right. I can't hear you.
I mean, I don't know if you are Christian or not Christian. But not selling through Christ is actually what got him crucified.
All right,
that's purely to keep the thing going. If it fails traction, I get to take it down. But if it gets some traction, it keeps the server running.
Wait, Eric, are you saying? So Eric's saying that Jesus is against in-app purchases? Is that what I hear?
Jesus doesn't tap, and he's against in-app purchases.
I think so. I mean, isn't that why? Isn't that
technically he said give to Caesar what belongs to Caesar. You're just Caesar in this scenario.
I think the lesson to learn might be that if you're doing something that's outside of your scope of knowledge and something that might be a very dear and personal to people's hearts, to make triply sure that you're being sensitive to their needs and considering these other things that you might not know about because you're not part of the of the group that you're marketing to. I'm not trying to make any statements anywhere. I'm just saying that you think that
respect
always keeping distance.
Yeah.
To frame it differently, can a male screenwriter or a male game writer make a game like Gone Home, or write a movie with a female protagonist? This is not specific to this unique circumstance or our chosen medium at all.
That's true.
Yeah. If you there's a on Netflix, there's a Stripped is a documentary about comic strips, and one of the artists in there, I can't remember the name of the comic, but she creates a comic around a female character, and the publishing company that gave her her start was looking for someone who was a female writer for a female audience, because males had tried to do it in the past, and they could do the artwork, but they just couldn't write the storyline. And so yeah, I mean, respecting your audience and being true to what their needs are is the focus.
I'm not trying to say also that, like, if you're a guy, you can only write stuff about being a guy, because, you should be able to look at different viewpoints and
I think that's absolutely true. I mean, to answer my own question there, absolutely. I think a man can write a story about a woman, or a straight person can write a queer focused story, or what, but like you said, it's about authenticity and approaching it from a place of respect and genuine intention. And it sounds like you did that with this, Ed. That's
right. So Ed, when you were called a hooker last time, just know that you could be a male or female hooker.
Now you're a money changer, Ed.
The list keeps growing.
Don't forget to read the about section.
About how you're just a poor orphan from Alabama. You just
No.
up
The reason why there's in-app purchases in that.
We didn't even get to talk to Steven about the state of the app industry here. That's what we do at the last half of this show. Oh, man. Brutal. That's too bad. Hey, look, I think that you can definitely take stuff outside your comfort zone. I mean, I think you can work on stuff outside your comfort zone for sure. Does that mean it's going to be good? Maybe. I mean, if you look at, what was that SNL sketch where they're talking about, what's that dude's name? Wes Anderson doing a horror movie.
Oh, that was such a funny sketch.
That would probably be pretty sweet. But, I mean, it's because he's honed his craft to the point where he knows his tropes, he knows what he does well, and he knows what goes into a horror movie, and then he can make it that much better. Now, I don't know if that really even applies to that you're talking about, Ed, because, I mean, I don't know. It's out of your moral, maybe, comfort zone. I don't know if that's even the right term, but it works. It sounds like I said, it's going to be like the Snapchat for Christians. I mean, does it have legs? Maybe. Who knows? I guess you got to throw it out there and see.
My thought here is that people, if they want to use it, great. If they don't like it, great. But if people do use it and they feel like supporting it to keep it running, because it's not free to run the server. I'm using the cheapest one now, but if it gets traffic, it has to go up.
So it has a cloud backend. Well, I mean,
right? Cloud backend. I mean, this is an experiment in a lot of ways for me. It's an experiment in a social experiment. It's an experiment in making an app that's way outside my comfort zone, and in an area where it was murky for me as to whether it was okay to make it or not, whether it was okay to do in-app purchases or not, and it's the Coronium backend and dealing with that. So it's me trying to stretch my legs in a number of different zones.
I think that's great. I think that's terrific. Stretching your legs and all that is terrific. I think there's definitely a fine line between seeing a niche in a market and exploitation. I'm assuming that you've towed that line success. I haven't looked at it, obviously. I'm going to assume that's the case.
I don't know. You look at it and you tell me if I've towed the line or if I've tromped right over it.
I'm not. I have no iron in the fire. I mean, I have no problem with people making money off of gullible whoever's, Christians or non. Makes no difference to me. Gullible is a strong word. I shouldn't have used that. What I'm saying is that you're working hard. Proud of you. That's always good to see. But There's really no but. That's terrific.
And speaking of somebody who
Cat's good.
decidedly Christian home and has spent more than $19 in his youth on some Christian metal, you are not forging new territory here. So you get an absolution on that.
But that's the idea, though. That's kind of where I'm at. It's like, yeah, people can do that for sure, but should you? Like you're saying, you're running the server, you're keeping the lights on. I think, for the most part, I think you're, from what I know about you, Ed, I think you give a lot to the community, the Corona community for sure. Do I think $20 is too much? I don't know. That's not really the question that we're asking here. The question that I'm asking, the question I'm saying is like, at what point does that move over to not respecting the source? I don't know anything about the source to know that. About your source.
You know what I should have done is I should have released both versions. There's another version which is not based in any religious sense, but it has the same premise. I should have done both at the same time to make this
to a parody
more palatable to some people, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I've got no.
Well, there's a spiritual journal category, right? Which is sort of the middle road for everybody, right? You are journaling your thoughts. You are with whatever intention that you have in that purpose. But that's the middle road if you're looking for something that's applies to multiple groups of people.
If you can find out a way to get God to do push notifications.
You don't want to do push notifications with that. You've heard those are lightning bolts, my friend.
Yeah, right. A little shock.
Ed, I'm gonna give you some homework on this, and this is gonna push you out of your comfort zone, but I think it's worth doing. Find a congregation near you that seems friendly, that seems sort of youngish and tech savvy. And there's a lot of tech savvy churches out there, and find a church that has a tech director. Because they're out there.
They are. Find a New Life church or something.
And sit down with them and be like, "Can I show this to you?"
That sounds real comfortable.
It won't be. It won't be. But it'll be.
It's the same thing. It's the same thing Laura does, right? She just hands them her phone.
The phone, right? Exactly.
The closest religious leader.
Just knock on the door. Excuse me, sir. Can I talk to you about the teachings of Ed Robin Gamers?
I should have done this in the beginning part of the show. We could all be riled up.
No, but I think that would be a cool. I mean, you talk about this as an experiment. Do it. What's the worst they can say? No, or I don't know. Hand you a pamphlet.
All right. Well, I think that's a good place to.
All right. Good.
That's a good place to leave it.
That's a great closing point.
Hand him a pamphlet.
That's handling. That's right. All right. Well, this is good. This has been a great conversation. I think we all step outside of our comfort zone every day when we're here, and thanks for Ed for sharing that because it's good for a laugh, but it's good food for thought too.
Hopefully, I won't get any hate mail.
No. I'll wait until tomorrow. All right, guys. See you next week.
All right. Yes.
Peace out.
See you next week.
All right, sweet. Have a great night, guys.
Auf Wiedersehen.